Menéndez in terms of my musical career, but actually I was born Paul Menéndez. My mother called me Paul after a very important figure of United States culture, Paul Robeson, who she admired very much. I was born in Berkeley, California. I always tell people it was Oakland because actually the only maternity hospital I think was in Oakland. I was born technically in Oakland, but I was living in Berkeley.
Mi primer instrumento era el trombón. Y lo que pasa es que hay que meterle una cantidad de horas y eso de notas tenidas y estudio, ¿verdad? Eso es un instrumento duro. Para enamorar a una jeva, con el trombón hay que tocar de verdad.
Not so far from here, there's a very lively atmosphere. Everybody's going there this year. And there's a reason the season opened last July. Ever since the USA went dry, everybody's going there and I'm going too. I'm on my way to Cuba, that's where I'm going. Cuba, that's where I'll stay. Cuba, where rum is flowing and every dark eye still lights her fellas Panatella. Cuba, where all is happy. Cuba, where all is gay. Why don't you plan a wonderful trip to Havana? Hop on a ship and I'll see you in CBA. Hit it!
Pablo was always really interested in music, and our house was always bulging with music. I mean, pounding with music. We would wake the kids up in the morning with bagpipe records, and then we'd put on some other marching band thing or something. And then one of the favorites was always the Staple Singers singing On Cloudy Day, Mavis Staples. Oh, it was so beautiful.
Cloudy day. Well, oh, yes, so yes, they tell me. No, they tell me no. So yes, they tell I got a home. So yes, got a home.
My mother was very unusual in the fact that at the time it wasn't supposedly permitted by the record companies and managers and things like that for a beautiful young woman to bring her kids with her to work, or even acknowledge that they had kids. We would go to concerts, to festivals, blues, folk music festivals, and also to the demonstrations that she would be participating in or singing in and things like that. So I got a lot of musical and political training.
I was another day, not a relief to chase away the grief. Tomorrow's another day.
Those skies above are gray, they don't have to stay that way. Shoulder to find someone to rely on. Tomorrow's another day.
We'd sometimes meet up. She would travel from New York, or later when she will move back to California, from California to, say, Helsinki, Finland, to a festival, and I would travel from Havana, and we would get there and walk on stage and perform together, because, performing all my life with her.
Y yo no me di cuenta lo que te quería. Desde el mismo día que yo te perdí. Yo no me doy cuenta lo que te quería. Cuando ya no había remedio para mí.
my little sister is, was always a beautiful little sister, and I didn't know that she would become a famous producer of flamenco festivals and singer also. My brother Jesse is actually, in a lot of sense, my first role model, and I always, looked up to him so much and wanted to be like him. And he's an excellent guitarist and musician and singer. And Jesse Connors, that's my idol. I remember telling my grandson once, he was talking about this rich and famous thing. I was telling him, like most rich people are not happy because they have a hard time having a good friend because they think everybody that gets near to them wants to get their money. They're afraid that somebody's going to come and take something from them.
Salmon as a species, with the condition they're living in, and how threatened they are by all the modern threats to the rest of us too, and to all of us. The air, the water, the dams that have prevented the water from flowing the way it used to. All these things have affected so many things. And I want to tell you a story about the way we honored our king. We destroyed his home and family, but it didn't mean a doggone thing. I got really upset about it, and I was just, that day I happened to read something about salmon in particular, I guess, and I just started saying, I want to use the salmon as a stand-in for all these other problems that all of us have, and it's just, so I started making up verses and tell the story. King Salmon's cradle is the river, his home is the deep. King Salmon's cradle is the river, home it is the deep. Where the fresh, where the salty, roams the waters wild and free. I was paying close attention to the Cuban Revolution. I was always very interested in that it was so near, that it was so seeming to be so much popularly based. All these people who had been totally disenfranchised were now rising up and taking over for themselves. So Irwin one day got a phone call from Estela Bravo, who is a filmmaker now, but then was doing a radio show on Radio Havana. And she was in New York to get some material for her show.
I went to the States with an invitation for Pete Seeger, because Pete Seeger had sung the Guantanamera and made it famous with the words of Martí, Jose Martí. He couldn't come at that time, but he said that Erwin Silber and Barbara Dane were really interested in coming to Cuba.
She had another quest, an invitation for some American singer to come to Cuba and help demonstrate that it was not in the slogan, Cuba Si, Yankee No, it was not the American people that were being given a negative, but it was in fact the American ruling class, to put it bluntly, that the American people had all kinds of affinities and reasons to be friends, and were friends with Cubans, so they wanted to demonstrate that.
never has been an anti-American people feeling here. The people always separated the people from the government and its policies.
I was 14, right? So around the time my mother calls me up from Cuba and said, "Wait there, I gotta tell you about my visit to Cuba." And I remember she showed me a lot of slides and photos and told me all about her trip and how exciting it was, and that she had arranged for me to go and study music in Cuba for a year. I remember getting on the plane and getting to Cuba. When they opened the door and I got off, I thought I was walking into a sauna. Like I came down into that heavy tropical air and thought, wow, what is this? The National School of Art had been built on the grounds of the Country Club of Havana.
Kids were given the possibility to study here tuition-free as part of the whole Cuban Revolution's, emphasis on education. So it's really crazy that, people from all over the island and, all different walks of life, tuition-free, were living here, and it was really exciting.
It had been nationalized to make a school for all of the arts, painting and sculpture and ballet and dance and theater, besides music. Everybody in Cuba had known about my mother's visit to Cuba. It was such an amazing phenomenon because of the political tensions and in fact threats of war from the United States. People from the United States were not coming to Cuba. And it was the State Department had made it illegal to travel to Cuba.
Cuando yo llego al albergue, me dicen los compañeros míos, Gallo, tenemos un americano en el albergue. Y digo, ¿cómo? Porque bueno, en aquel momento era la primera vez que venía un extranjero. Y eso.
Pablo en la escuela se quedó y se convirtió en un cubano más. Un cubano que hablaba inglés y cada vez iba hablando el español mejor y mejor y mejor.
People would come right after breakfast and start to grill me about what's life like in the United States, what's culture like in the United States. And I used to have my little blues harp in my pocket, and they would say, "Oh, play a little bit of blues harp for me."
But this was the first place we did a concert with my band, the cover band Los Gallos, right there, and all of the students were here dancing and stuff like that, and we were up there playing our rock and roll cover at the time.
Estados Unidos se había convertido en el enemigo político más grande de Cuba y bueno, claro que una guitarra eléctrica no era bienvenida en ese momento en Cuba. Otra cosa era si la traía Pablo, el hijo de Bárbara Dane, miembro de todo el movimiento progresista de Estados Unidos. Y esto después traería consecuencias grandes para la música cubana.
My academic, career was a little bit difficult because they didn't have a popular music school, electric guitar school, and things like that, which is one of the reasons I later on got involved in starting the electric guitar department in the National School of Art. Music, so I remember I used to cut class and go over to the modern dance school because they were taking classes, the modern dance classes were taught with live musicians playing, and some of the great rumba players in the ensembles of the sacred Mata drummers, one of the major religions of Cuba, Regla de Osha. Music and dance as part of the ceremonies, and that was part of the basic studies for the modern dance. These drums are played by 3 people with 6 hands, somebody else doing the singing. All of the people in these ceremonies dance and sing, and part of them are playing music.
to bring down the different gods, the orishas, that come and dance and sing and participate with the human beings in these ceremonies.
Almost everybody at the school was, curious about going and grilling me and asking me stuff about Cuba. I was always surrounded by people, so it was kind of like, it gave the wrong impression to a certain young woman who was a little bit shy herself, but she also thought, oh, I don't want to talk to this guy, what does he think he's special or something like that? And so she was like one of the only girls that never wanted to actually get near me and talk to me. But then one day I was out with some people from school who went to see a concert by la Orquesta de Música Moderna in Teatro Amadeo Roldán. So after the concert, some people were going off to a party. Turns out that I spoke to all of the girls in the party, but the one that actually caught my attention and as being somebody not only the most beautiful of all of them, but also the most interesting one to speak to. Turns out that we hooked up and we got married in January '68, and I was 15 at the time.
They were so young. They're so young. And I remember, I think Barbara even had, when Pablo wanted to get married, Barbara had to come here to sign some papers because he was so young. And he was very fortunate, Pablo, because he met Adria Santana, who had a wonderful family. The family relations were very strong.
She actually, became one of Cuba's most important drama theater actresses, traveled around the world and was also important in films and movies and theaters and TV, and became my partner for all of 43 years that we were married. Well, the Cuban Film Institute in the late 60s was making a lot of documentaries, a lot of documentary films about Cuba and the world, and young directors were making their first films, and a lot of times they were using even psychedelic rock music from San Francisco. So it was the intention of the Film Institute to get some rebellious young spirits, musicians in there, and put them into a kind of a think tank group to study with one of the world's leading contemporary composers and guitar composers, Leo Brauer.
Paul, desde mi punto de vista, era uno de los músicos integrales que conocía el folclore cubano perfectamente, el modo de operar con él y, a su vez, el jazz y el rock.
I remember talking to him on our bus ride back home or something like that, right? I met him, a young man at the time. He had studied in the United States at Juilliard, come back to Cuba, and went on to become one of the most important guitar composers and contemporary music composers in the world. And he dedicated a lot of time to the formation of this group of young, rebellious people.
And we're doing very cutting edge jazz fusion, jazz rock, Cuban fusion, and political song with, very evolved and developed arrangements and things like that.
Desde un proyecto musical tan importante como es el GES, el Grupo de Experimentación Sonora del ICAI, que marca toda una línea hidroestética en este país a partir de su irrupción, la huella de Pablo se hace muy fuerte dentro de esa banda porque él le aportó al Jesse el componente rockero.
The Beatles were the subject, the center of a whole lot of debate about rock and roll in the late 60s in Cuba, and you know, they were the symbol of what was going on. Some people would say that, well, you couldn't hear them, especially, you know, out in the countryside or in, you know, different places where people didn't have a lot of sophisticated view of, you know, what was rock and roll and politics, things where, you know, people would say, oh, music, the United States is, wow, an imperialist country, so the music from the United States is imperialist, something like that. And, you know, anyway, but at the art school, we used to listen to the Beatles, you know, on the loudspeakers in the school and all the parties and things. I had a portable tape recorder. But anyway, it was really important for Cuban youth as a symbol when a Cuban sculptor, Villa, made this statue of John Lennon. Now, right here on the corner, there's a club that is, you know, dedicated to covers of the Beatles and rock and roll, and it's one of the best places to play in Havana. It's called Yellow Submarine.
Muchísimas gracias. Bueno, esta noche está aquí un músico internacional. Mi papá. La Mónica, el señor Pablo Menéndez.
Que siempre me inspira a nunca sentirme derrotado, a siempre tener un nuevo sueño, un nuevo reto.
Cuando se vaya la luz y negra, nos vamos a desnudar. Temprano tiene su encanto, como la gente del campo. Lo malo es que sin agua y sin ventilador acabaremos pegajosos y sudados como en un maratón. Cuando se vaya la luz mi negra, mi abuela va a comenzar a desatar su mal genio, háblame mal del gobierno. Mi abuelo que ni angara le va a reportar que culpa del imperialismo, de la OPEP y del mercado mundial.
Mi abuelo, Pablo Menéndez, es un hombre que también ha estado muy vinculado al arte. Y en sus 90 años tuve el privilegio de ser la banda contratada para esa fiesta.
Puede ser la buena, puede ser la mía, puede ser la cura de todas mis heridas, pero no me cortes la sala, no pongas cielos en mi cama. Pero no me cortes la sala, no pongas cielos en mi cama.
My father went to New York to visit me right before I came to Cuba and gave me some of the most important advice I ever got in my life, and I think something anybody would appreciate if they're from the United States was, he said, you're coming from the United States to a small country that is very nationalistic, and a lot of people from the United States make the mistake of getting there and saying, why don't you do things, how come you don't do things the way we do it in the United States, as if the United States was perfect? And people in a small nationalist country like that will really resent that. So he says, why don't you keep your mouth shut and try to figure out what makes them tick? I always have said that mezcla, in my mind, is very close to the original idea, where every member can be in their moment, the center of attention, and bring in their own compositions, arrangements, or solos, and their own personalities. And I think that was the legacy in my own career of the Grupo de Experimentación Sonora del ICAI. I finally decided this, I needed to try to figure out a way of putting it all into one package. So that's how I came up with the idea of making the band Mezcla. It wasn't called Mezcla at the beginning. We didn't have a name for it, but I was looking for musicians that had this same necessity to be true to their own hearts. If I like different genres, then why not mix them all together and try to do all of it at once? Okay, there's one band that could play jazz, that could play Cuban rock and roll, that could play covers of somebody else's rock and roll, that could play, African-based, Yoruba-based rumba, or stuff with bata drums, and bring that into the mixture, or whatever.
Dice que se han hecho conciertos de esto de 200.000 personas en la Plaza de la Revolución, y La Habana tiene 2 millones de habitantes, de manera que yo creo que en ningún otro país del mundo se han dado fenómenos así, de esta identificación tan grande con la juventud y esta música.
Quiere el hombre amar y ser feliz, persiguiendo el sueño de la luz, donde encuentre un modo de vivir que le rinda un culto a la virtud. Solo entonces desde su raíz podrá conocerse más allá, presumiendo todo lo que es, lo que ha sido y algún día será.
Nacimos de un fuego imperfecto y natural que se agigantó y hoy quiere crecer.
En el alma noble que incesante buscará su propia razón, es el hombre ser. Corazón, 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 quiero verte por dentro.
One of the countries that had developed a whole exciting movement of rock and roll in Spanish was Argentina, and people in Cuba didn't know about that. So I said, we got to do one song at least so that we can tell them about this exciting movement of rock and roll in Spanish. So we did a song by Fito Páez called Yo Vengo a Ofrecer Mi Corazón.
Tanta sangre que se llevó el río, yo vengo a ofrecer mi corazón. No será tan fácil, ya sé qué pasa, no será tan simple como pensaba, como abrir el pecho y sacar el alma, una cuchillada del amor.
One of the reasons we were doing the Brazilian samba at the beginning of the band was, because I always wanted people in Cuba don't know, traditionally a lot about Brazilian music and all the riches of music that Brazil makes. And so we heard a Spanish language translation of a song by Chico Buarque that we did, and was very popular, popularized it all in Cuba first stage of mezcla called A pesar de você, A pesar de usted.
Mañana será otro día. Mañana será otro día. Y mañana será otro día. Hoy es usted el que manda, lo dicho está dicho, es mi discusión. No, toda mi gente hoy anda hablando bajito, mirando el reloj. Yo, usted que inventó el pecado, inventó el inventar toda la oscuridad. Usted que inventó el pecado, olvidóse de inventar el perdón. A pesar de usted, mañana de ser otro día.
Jazz, for example, people would ask me about jazz, and I say, well, jazz is kind of a perfect microscopic artistic way of expressing democracy and freedom the way it should be in the world. In jazz, people are playing together, they kind of discuss, okay, in advance, okay, we're going to play this harmony and this rhythm and this song and this repertoire, but everybody gets a chance to express themselves. You're going to be the soloist now, and I'm going to back you up. And then it's going to be my turn to speak, and you're going to back me up. And if the world and politics or something like that would happen on that level, then life, the world would be a much more peaceful place.
Sí, es democrático, pero siempre hay un líder en un grupo. Y lo que tiene que ese líder entender de qué manera deja libre y relajado al resto de los músicos para que de verdad sean honestos.
On a deep level, we say mezcla, mixture. We're talking about the biggest mixture of all times of humanity, the mixture of different nationalities of Africans, different nationalities of Europeans coming together in the Americas. Now that is something that unites the culture of Cuba and the culture of the United States very much because it's the same mixture.
Rumbero mayor, is Octavio Rodriguez. And he is also a priest or a babalao in that religion. And also there's a certain category of the master of the drum ensemble. So it's Olubata is like the owner of the drums, and he's the one that's allowed to do the ceremonies that will prepare them for participating in these religious ceremonies. He was one of the first to discover how to play all three of the drums with just two hands.
Persona muy respetada, babalao, orubatá, pero además ha sido dentro de todos ellos uno de los que más ha hecho en la historia de la música cubana de llevar esa cultura, esos tambores, esa esencia a la trova, al rock cubano, al jazz cubano.
Y en el solar de la Cueva del Humo hay tremenda palmadera.
En el solar de la Cueva del Humo hay tremenda palmadera.
Todo el mundo está luchando, también se están preparando.
Todo el mundo está luchando, también se está preparando.
Cada uno con lo suyo va a vendérselo a cualquiera. ¡Juega!
Cada uno con lo suyo va a vendérselo a cualquiera.
Mima con su coquito, Muma con su roncito, Lola y su chupa chupa, Santica con su roncita, María con su dominó.
Y si viene la policía lo va a coger lo que anda, dice.
Si viene la policía lo va a coger lo que anda.
Por eso te digo yo, habla.
Panepira malanga.
Se llevan el puesto de vianda.
Panepira malanga.
Ahí te coge lo que anda.
Panepira malanga.
Pablo es un investigador, es un hombre que ha ido a las raíces de la cultura norteamericana y de la cultura cubana. Respetó y admiró mucho siempre a uno de nuestros grandes cantores, el apón, como decimos en lengua yoruba, el solista, el cantante Lázaro Ross, ya ha fallecido hace años, que fue una voz única.
Vamos a hacerlo en tono.
Oye, si le confollao, chaguatea la cuero maribo, ya te.
I traveled to San Francisco and did a concert in San Francisco as part of the Encuentro de Canto Popular of San Francisco, California, put on by Bill Martinez, and Acción Latina was the organization behind that.
We tried to bring in the group Mezcla for this festival. What had been the first Latin performance at the Yerba Buena Gardens Theater in San Francisco, so it was sort of a big deal. And we got the I-129 petition approved, the basic petition for his visa approved, but in the end, the visas were denied to the majority of the group. The only members that were allowed to come into the country for Mezcla was Pablo and Lázaro Ross, and we filed a federal lawsuit, actually, because they did, the Immigration State Department denied those 4 or 5 other artists from coming to the country.
3 Congress people went to bat for us and petitioned the State Department to get that reversed. California Senator Barbara Boxer, New York Congressman Charles Rangel, and Congresswoman Nancy Pelosi. So Lázaro, Amelia Pedroso, and Yamira Batista were allowed into the country, but the band wasn't. Piano player, the woman who actually wrote the book, literally, about salsa piano playing, and a great musician and jazz player and musician and woman who knows a whole lot about Cuban music, had been doing superior studies of Cuban music in Cuba. I had invited her to be the pianist on this tour. Her name is Rebecca Mauleon. We had to get some local musicians to come and back us up, and that was part of the band of Carlos Santana. And Carlos Santana came and played also.
Cuba iba a ser de España. Martínez Campos creía que Cuba iba a ser de España. Se paseaba allá en La Habana con fuerza de artillería, y Maceo le decía: ven, que hacia la sabana, que yo con mi tropa cubana agua Cuba independiente, a fuerza plomo caliente y filo de guayarama. Ajá.
Turns out that it was really magical because we didn't even rehearse, we immediately understood each other, and it worked beautifully together.
Yo pienso que Pablo Menéndez es una de las pocas personas que realmente ha dedicado su creación musical al enriquecimiento de las raíces folclóricas. Hay elementos del rock también, hay elementos del jazz. Y entonces él ha logrado una manera, él ha logrado un lenguaje en su música. pienso que uno de los grupos en Cuba más valiosos desde el punto de vista de formación de un músico es precisamente Mezcla.
Lo interesante, la unión de las raíces afrocubanas y afro-norteamericanas, porque Pablo también ha pasado por el territorio del jazz durante la cantidad de variedad de cosas que él ha hecho, ¿no? Aquí en Cuba para nuestro bien.
En realidad Pablo es como si fuera cubano, porque es parte de la cultura cubana, ya tiene su huella en la cultura cubana y en todo lo que es la música cubana.
Different versions of mezcla. Right now I have, I started my own trio because there's a number of different venues that have sprung up in Havana and around the country, and in fact around the world, that can't accommodate for a larger band. One of the major, most famous jazz schools in the world in Manhattan invited me to do a concert, and they didn't have enough budget to get band up there, so I just went on my own, and they got a lot of the New York jazz masters to come and play with me, and they put it on the poster as Mezcla New York. So. Became kind of a bridge between the two countries, because I figured that I had the responsibility to try at least to explain a little bit about what real life in the United States was to people in Cuba, and what
reality in Cuba was to people in the United States. So, you know, I've been doing that now for 48 years.
Many more surprises coming up in the next set, and we'll be back in about 15 minutes.
We were very privileged to see Pablo and his band play, and they were fantastic. And our whole group was thrilled. And I mean, not just, I mean, the music was great, but Pablo's whole presence and his story's amazing. I mean, you know, this American who chose to come to Cuba, and how he weaves in the story with his music and politics, and it was a treat for us.
In 1999, there was an event called Music Bridges, and 40 artists from the United States, very well-known artists, came from the United States to Cuba and got together 40 artists from Cuba, and we wrote music together. I had the opportunity of playing with one of my favorite singers, Bonnie Raitt.
Cuba's way too cool. Not only do I love this kind of music, but the opportunity to open up our two countries to appreciating each other more realistically, and hopefully allowing musicians to go back and forth more freely is my aim here. I think it's fantastic.
One of the most successful songs of that event was written by a U.S. singer named Joan Osborne. She wrote it with a salsa musician here called Manolito Simone. This is called Just to Be Alone with You.
Yo le bromeo a Pablo porque yo le digo que hay que hacerle un clip que sea él yéndose en una balsa de Estados Unidos y llegando a Cuba en una balsa.
Every day I thank the Lord above for giving me such a way with love. Baby, baby, what I wouldn't do just to be alone with you.
I thought basically when Adria passed that it would be the end of my life in a certain sense. But much to my surprise, I've been very fortunate, extremely fortunate to find someone who has, you know, helped me remake my life, and it's made me extremely happy, and an incredible partner again that I think will be able to share what's left for me.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How you feeling tonight? Very pleased to welcome you to tonight's World Music Festival concert here at Millennium Park. I've got a couple announcements to make just before the music gets started. So, on behalf of the City of Chicago and the Department of Cultural Affairs and Millennium Park, I'd like to officially welcome you to World Music Festival Chicago 2014. Please welcome Pablo Menéndez and Mezcla.
Go bang senije, ha que te go bang senije, baba jogo dara go bang langense, oh bang langense, baba fuminaje, ha que te go bang senije, ha que te go bang senije, baba jogo dara go bang langense, baba fuminaje, no me digas más. Más mentiroso, no me digas más. No me digas más mentiroso, no me digas más. No me digas más mentiroso, no me digas más.
What do you think of tonight's concert?
I thought it was great. I love that keyboard player and fiddle player. Oh my God. Heart be still.
Have you been to Cuba to see him?
No, I've never been to Cuba. Not yet.
Okay. Well,
Could happen.
Maybe this is the year.
Yeah, yeah, I would love to go.
I think being assimilated by Cuban music, my way of being honest and sincere is to bring then my roots and my origins into it also. So that's one of the things that Mezcla is about, is of course mixing Afro-North American influence into Afro-Cuban influences, and coming out with something that is in a certain sense also a mixture of US and Cuban music. People come up and recognize me and say, oh, you say things, or they just say, hey, Mezcla, Pablo. That's success for me.
Oye, Pablo, vi la entrevista que te hizo Pele Guillal. Qué bueno, habló de va para lindo tu mamá, qué bien.
Sí, señor.
Oye,
Sí,
encantado de verte,
Bueno,
mi
¿y el
hermano.
rock, eh?
No, quédate tranquilo.
Joaquín.
Pablo, mi hermano, ¿cómo tú
¿Qué es lo que
andas,
hay?
compadre?
¿Qué?
Me encontré con tu hijo allá en Miami. Fue un gustazo en el Cuba 8.
Óyeme, Pablo, hey,
coño.
mi hermano.
¿Qué es lo que hay? Claro que sí.
Oye, tenía una cosita ahí, a ver qué idea tú tienes.
A ver, dime.
Empezaría más o menos así. La 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 a la 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 a la 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 a la 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 la.
Music is part of life, and it makes life better. It's not a magical, pill or anything. It doesn't make anything, it doesn't change everything just on its own. But life sure is better with music, and it's really exciting to be part of it. That's why I'm always, just full of energy and full of love, because that's what music's about.
Well, the thing about Havana, living in a city like this, a beautiful history of, like it's a 500-year-old something city, and in fact, most of these fortifications and things were built here to protect the city in a point in history when the United States and North America didn't have any stone buildings at all. People were just getting there and trying to figure out from the Indians how to not starve or freeze. But Havana's been around for a real long time, and still today I feel it's like the center of the musical world. And there's, people from all over the world come here and visit and play with us, and we do concerts with people from all over the world. And where it is that I'm living, this is a beautiful, exciting, vibrant city, and musically it's kind of like the center of the world for me.
Mírelo como yo lo ve, el camino se hace con la fe, yo te lo digo. El camino se hace con la fe.
Difícil para quien
El camino se hace con la fe.
no quiere hacerte el bien.
El camino se hace con la fe.
Si nos unimos bien,
El camino se hace con la fe. A pesar del humo y de la noche, el camino se hace con la fe, yo te lo digo. Mírelo como yo lo veo. Haremos y yo. Mírelo como yo lo veo.
la suerte, la madurez pueden ayudar, pero el verdadero camino solo está en la fe.
La fe resiste todo el mal. Si tienes fe, no pasa nada. Mitiga el hambre y el dolor. Y ten tu fe, que no hay más nada.
not enemies, we're neighbors and friends. To wanna sing and play together was our only offense. So what keeps us apart when we feel so near? You see, we got so much in common, and there's nothing to fear. Hey, stop this blockade, bring down the obstacles between us. No one could be hurt by that. And this charade, you know it's bad for business, and everybody knows